An important thing about Gilberto Gil is his passion about mixing and remixing elements into new syntheses. As an artist, he managed to mix the bossa nova with rock and roll to create the Tropicalista movement. And as a public official in charge of the Ministry of Culture, he came out with a program that mixes free software, advanced concepts on copyrights, and an awareness that the appropriation of technology by the people is an emergent social movement in the digital era. The outcome of the mix is the program is called Pontos de Cultura, or Culture Hotspots. A hotspot is established with a broadband connection, infrastructure made with recycled equipment, and most of all, technical workshops about open source software, allowing anyone to digitalize their creativity. In this process, it becomes clear for all involved that creativity and culture, when accessed and reused freely, generates the notion of culture as a common enterprise. A cultural hotspot both produces and consumes culture. It's a house, a room, a warehouse, a physical structure, a commons, placed strategically anywhere that there is local cultural activity. The purpose of the project is to aggregate these cultural productions and radiate their content to all hotspots around the country. The idea is to provide a basic infrastructure to allow people to produce cultural goods using open source tools and to distribute these goods in the hotspots network, working through Creative Commons and copyleft license in a way that allows remixing and collaborating with the other hotspots and with the whole of society. We sometimes use the metaphor that Brazil was still in the 19th century when the internet wave really hit. Maybe it is easier to talk with these kids of the cultural hotspots about Gil's digital culture than it would be to do with minds full of concepts of 20th century industrial culture. And that's exactly the point I would like to address here, as sometimes we all get trapped in ways of thinking conditioned by this short period of our history which successfully established consumer and modern market ideology. If culture is a project, the primary relation I have with a cultural good is a commercial one and not a creative one. This notion was very clearly imprinted in the words of a remark made yesterday on the openness session. It was said that we should find the limit between freedom and abuse, which is right. But the example given was of a young composer who wouldn't make his living from his art without having the opportunity to sell his CDs, the CDs of his music. As I understood the speaker, he was talking against the possibility of free access to that young composer's creation through the internet. But what the kids from the cultural hotspots are doing in Brazil is just that, remixing. And they publish what they do. And they put licenses that invite others to remix the remix. The sense of exclusive ownership over what they create is being diluted, intentionally, as a cultural option. There is a clear acceptance of the collective value of the ideas and sounds and images that digital culture is providing them with. It's their culture, but it's also global culture. It's an everywhere culture, in fact, that today can be reached at the distance of a mouse click. It comes as no surprise that the statistics tells us that Brazilians have recently broken their own record numbers in surfing time on the web. This is happening in Brazil now, but when I listen to people talking here at this event, I have the feeling that this notion is very, very far from the perspective I am hearing. This gap in understanding is what brings me and many of my mentors and colleagues to our concern that certain principles must form the basic architecture of an Internet Bill of Rights. From a digital cultural perspective, these principles should be designed to reactivate notions of common heritage, of cultural creativity that were displaced by industrial age business models of mass distribution of and consumption of cultural products, and by narrow and exclusive notions of ownership. For example, the notion that a musician originally creates and plays music and is not merely a CD seller. He cannot be a virtuoso or an inspired composer, but he can also be a teacher, a journalist, or a minister. For this person, the internet is an opportunity for him to get known, to connect an interested audience, and also a chance to meet new partners in the creative process. These are all novel situations that the digital age brings to us. So from the perspective of the digital culture that is presented by Minister Gilberto Gil, we must have the basic right to remix culture, which necessarily includes some conditions. Right to access culture, for example. We believe this is a development issue in a moment when the copy and distribution of digital cultural goods has almost zero marginal costs. There must be public policies on broadband designed to provide access to those who can't afford it, and on public domain and digital archives of public funded content. And also a new intellectual property legal framework to cope with the new situation brought by the digital paradigm. Well, thank you.